All right, pushing on the doors that are always marked full, ladies and gentlemen, from San Francisco, California. It's time for Zig in the Zone. What's up, Ziggy?
Via Alameda.
Via Alameda. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, Paulie.
The island.
The island.
Yes.
The island, as we say here.
It parallels Oakland.
It does indeed. It used to be an attachment of Oakland.
Really?
And they made a man-made estuary to make it an island. And this is years before you and I were born.
I didn't know that.
You were born what? In the late 80s?
60.
Oh, 60.
Yes, so I was very young when Dad went to Kansas City in 62.
We have Nancy Finley with us. It's kind of a sad week for anyone who loves baseball and the A's in particular, because anytime a franchise moves, it's a tragedy for the kids primarily, and I say the kids / the old folk like me. Yeah, it used to be, if I wanted to, I didn't often do it, but if I wanted to walk to where I was living in Alameda to the ballpark in Oakland, I could go over the Fruitvale Bridge, the High Street, this, that, and the other thing. Walk in, get good seats, see American League ball on a regular basis when I wanted to, when the spirit hit me, and it's gone. I wasn't an A's fan. I'm not a Giant fan. I was an A's sympathizer, an A's and a Giants sympathizer, because it was baseball and the memories of all of it. Kids will not grow up with what I grew up with. They won't grow up certainly in a city with 3 teams, the Giants, the Brooklyn Dodgers, the New York Giants, and the New York Yankees. And it seemed like when I was a kid, they were playing in the World Series. One of those 3 teams, or a combination thereof, was playing in the World Series every year. We thought as kids that it was a birthright to play in the World Series. Now, I can tell you this. The last time there were 3 teams consecutively to play in the World Series, surrounded by 2 championship teams, so for 5 years, the A's absolutely dominated the world. And
And they haven't won any World Series since '95. Isn't that correct?
that I don't, off the top of my head, at this stage of my dementia, as that all the years start to blend together. Nancy, the only thing that keeps it all young for me is you.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. By the way, Ralph, did you receive the email? I found the letter or the article where Charlie said, Seattle is a beautiful place. I'd like to move there. And he told someone with the media, and it was when we were, or Dad was organizing the move. And I emailed that to you.
My email, as Paul will tell you, he's trying to receive it, recover it for me. It has been down of late. Let me just say this. I think it's a conspiracy by Yahoo to get money out of you, but that's another show.
Well, I remember telling you, and there it was, and the notes, Dad said no.
Well,
Yeah.
Not Seattle, huh?
Charlie said it's such a beautiful place, and he had told someone with the media.
Yeah, well, I've been through Seattle many times. It is indeed a beautiful place in the summertime. If you like rain all the time, it ain't that great. And
well, Dad had to agree to move to wherever they were going, and he said no because he was already planning to move to Oakland.
Beautiful. Your dad, by the way, to the listening audience, was the late Carl Finley. And tell me a little bit about the relationship that the two enjoyed, Carl and Charlie. And I don't mean Charlie O the mule. I mean Charlie O the other mule.
Dad allowed Charlie to look like he was able to do a lot 2,000 miles away. I still read people say that Charlie ran everything 2,000 miles away. We know that's not true.
Yeah, what role did you have in that as you were growing up? Sure, running.
Oh, well, I was
in the front office.
I was real tiny in Kansas City, but I have fond memories of the inside of that stadium and sitting next to President Truman. But then after my parents divorced and Dad gained custody, I was flown to Oakland from Dallas, and that was June 1970. And that's when Dad was living at the top of 1200 Lakeshore in a penthouse, 25 floors, with a beautiful view of San Francisco and Berkeley. And so from then on, I was at the office when I wasn't in school. I was at the office, and Dad would try to find things for me to do. In '71, it was to organize Vita Blues fan mail and show it to him. And I worked on the switchboard. Debbie Sivier's older sister, Kathy, was there. Debbie Sivier was one of our ball girls, future Mrs. Fields. And so Kathy's sister, younger sister, would come in and say hi to her sister. And that's when Dad called Charlie and said, Kathy's sister is gorgeous. We should find something for her to do. And that's how the ball girls started.
Oh, that's a nice story. Nice story.
And then, yes. So I was in offices filing and doing odd jobs to stay busy. No internet then, no cell phones then. So I would just use the phone in that wherever I was. I learned my way around the catacombs, underneath, up above. In fact, if they ever tear that stadium down, I would like to have that plaque that says Section 121 with the arrow, because that's what I could see from the window, the conference room window, and that's where all the players' families sat.
Okay. I gotta ask you this on the air. I think I know the story behind it. You were promised at one time that your dad would be elected or chosen, however they did it, selected for the Oakland A's Hall of Fame. And
I was made to believe that. Yes.
okay, it didn't happen.
No. No. And I was really anxious over the summer when it was approaching, and I actually contacted a friend who works with the A's. I had not contacted in ages, but he worked for Dad. He was a good friend of Dad's, and I was surprised at the tone he had. It I knew that it wasn't going to happen, but I thought, why not have it happen? Why not do it at the last minute and put Dad's name in under non-player executive and just as a memoriam? I mean, why not?
That's the question. Why not? What would it cost them to do it? Nothing. They engrave a plaque or whatever,
Exactly.
and the people would go, "Oh yeah, he was a Finley, but he was a good Finley."
Yeah,
And not
executive,
that,
not
not
player.
right, not that Charlie O wasn't a good Finley. In some respects, he was a genius. Talent recognition and what have you. Can't credit the guy enough. He
They made a good man.
did a few things that were distasteful to
Oh,
me.
like what?
God knows, he did a few things, just a few.
My mother thought
Just
so.
a few outside. Well, my big thing, he tried to get Vita Blue to change his name to True Blue.
Oh,
And
that was just Charlie would mention it, having this creative moment, and if a player was really good, he would push it.
oh,
If the
okay.
player was not good and didn't want to, that was a reason to get him out. So I mean, hey, if Biden didn't want it, that was fine. He was great. He was a great player.
Well, let's just say that your dad was a go-between between what was said and about the A's all getting together with only one thing in common. They all hated each other and they all hated Charlie O.
They hated each other.
There was a lot of friction amongst the A's.
You know what though? That's like brothers fighting, because when I was at Catfish Hunter's special day right after his diagnosis, and we had a private gathering before the press conference, they had tears in their eyes. They all looked like a family, and like they regretted the lost time wasted. I mean, that really said a lot.
Yeah.
Well, there's competition even within a ball club, right? It's
Oh,
a whole bunch of guys with testosterone.
but
Can
they
I
could
say
look
it?
at each other and get
I'm
one
in my
another
50s
back.
and I'm not a guy with a lot of testosterone at this
Right.
point. I probably have more estrogen at this point.
Oh.
But what I'm saying is it's a whole bunch of guys in competition. They never see him cry, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I think it's more like what Nancy was saying. It's a whole bunch of brothers that weren't in tune with their feelings, but here they've come of age and they all see each other. They see the lines on their faces and they go, "Oh my gosh, why do we let this macho thing get us? We can hug."
We need to get some funding for a movie and make it the three of us, and we'll go on the road and
we'll spread love throughout the country. Wait, hold on. I'm too young to be spreading love throughout the country.
Well, actually,
I want some kind of theme, somewhere. It doesn't have to be California. I've been told, just some kind of theme with statues, signs with their names. Somewhere I could inter the mascot's ashes, because he was real. He wasn't stuff. So I was just I felt bad because I remember Bida seemed depressed at one time when at one event. He said he'd be lucky to have a poster.
So hold on. So what I think you just hit the nail on the head. What about Kansas City?
I love Kansas City, but I think they're still angry at us. A lot of them. I have
Well, you
friends.
know, I think there's been enough time and enough water gone under the bridge for this one.
I should send you something I came across by accident last year out of a suburb of Kansas City, and it was someone who was doing a podcast, and it had some bad name about Charlie, and they had used a picture of Dad in place of Charlie. And I ordered them to remove that. I mean, I said, how can you not find a picture of Charlie Finley on the internet anywhere?
You'd be hard pressed to find a picture of your dad.
I know, and they found it. So so I read what they said, and it's just the same stuff from other books. It's not what I have. That's the truth. I have really good sources. So I was dismayed to see that. I just thought, how can this keep going? But I love Kansas City. Dad did not want to leave. He had very good friends. They're still there. I still hear from my friends. I love going back there.
And we can have the two remaining Beatles there.
Nancy, that's true. And let me ask you this. What specifically is the difference between living in Kansas City and living in the Oakland that you lived in 1970, not the Oakland that I'm living across the moat from in 2024? Different world.
Different world. Now, people, we were brand new. People didn't really know how to take us at that time. It felt like when I moved out there, they'd been there 2 years, but Dad's good friend was one of the first season ticket purchasers. And he actually owned one of the only legal gambling places in the area called the Key Club. And he was Dad's good friend, but I never really saw Dad have as good of friends as he did in Kansas City. I mean, real friends. I mean, he tried, but it was a challenge. I always knew when Dad felt he couldn't trust someone 100% and didn't feel comfortable, but I could tell that people were believing some things they read in the paper, and it didn't help when the press had put out articles before we arrived saying, "Oh no, watch out for Finley, you get Finley." That didn't help.
Yeah, you had that newspaper man who eventually tried to take over, if I remember correctly. And
take over the A's?
Yeah, and back when it was in Kansas City.
Oh, you mean Mel?
Yes.
Oh, yes. I have his book was in Dad's things. My witness to that is Crosby Kemper, whose father was Charlie's banker. And Crosby was about 12, he said, when Charlie came to their house early in the morning and asked his dad, "What do I do now? Because I discovered that Mel was taking $4,000 a month, paying himself out of the A's checkbook." This is when Johnson was the owner.
That's my memory.
And the checkbook was in Mel's office, his Kansas City Star office. So Crosby said his dad didn't really know what to do. He didn't know what to say. And what do you do? Can you go after them for extortion? Not when everyone in town knows everyone. So people seemed afraid of Mel. So Charlie's huge mistake was when he had a poison pin day. Oh, gosh, because Mel taught Sunday school. He volunteered to teach Sunday school, which was brilliant because he had another side to him, which Roger Maris mentions. They mention it in the Maris biography. But Mel made sure to teach Sunday school, and people remembered that side of him. So they didn't know why Mel was being called that. And a lot of people didn't know what poison pin meant. So that backfired. That's why in my book I wanted to come out and just say what was happening.
You wrote a great book.
Thank you.
You're working on a second book, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I just finished.
Oh.
Took a long time.
Do you mind if you name it right on the show?
Well, I wanted to call it Straight A's, and I do want to call it that. But the publisher, I sent the publisher the manuscript, which needs polishing, and he said he couldn't guarantee it would have that title. In other words, he might want to call it the same thing.
Ah.
So I said I understand.
Okay.
What does he want to call it though?
Oh, probably Finley Ball Part 2 or something.
Oh, Finley Ball 2. Like, so the people really kind of go, oh, this is Part 2.
Yes. So
it's a marketing thing. It's a marketing thing.
Right. And I started in 75, and I explained free agency and the trial Charlie had against Coon and why. Because I still hear people say that Charlie, it was bad of Charlie to want to sell the players, but that's a trade. I'm thinking of how many times other teams do that, and I thought it was obvious that it was because of free agency, and it would just cost too much money for Charlie. I thought people knew. I assume people knew that.
He could have made that case up until the catfish hunter blunder.
That was before. And Charlie admits that what he did, how he handled that. Now, Dad told Charlie to pay on time. And Charlie, like an insurance man, waited till the last day of the 2 weeks.
The grace period.
Yes. So he never really.
I was an old insurance man, by the way, Nancy.
Exactly. So Dad kept telling him, "You need to pay."
I'm still old, but there's no insurance.
But this was a year after, and there's a book by Jerome Holtzman called The Commissioners, and he was there. He was with the Chicago Tribune, and he appeared at describing it. He felt that Finley should have won, and he also mentioned some other things from that trial that I go into in the book. I quote him.
Great. Does Morgan work with you on this book?
No, he's not. He doesn't have the best memory of things, and I haven't had his help. And then also I've forced myself to read some books that Dad had sent to him that just sat around, and that has been a little startling because I'll read something I didn't know that someone said. And like, for instance, I read somewhere where someone called our promotions an infliction on the fans, like our Ball Girl Day. No, Hot Pants Day. I'm sorry, Hot Pants Day was an infliction. Did you feel inflicted, Ralph?
No.
I mean,
I rarely do, and that's part of my insensitivity to life.
Well, and here's my thought. He was a marketing genius. Okay.
Thank you. Oh, no, you meant Charlie O.
Oh, yeah. No, that's true.
You didn't mean me.
No, not you.
God knows.
Yeah, God knows.
Okay.
You'd smoke our profit, but we'll talk about that.
We will.
But no, he was a marketing genius. Think of all the crazy stuff he did, and it was. People would say it was to turn a buck, but wasn't it really to get more fans, more butts and seats? Isn't that what we're trying to do? I'm an entertainer. I don't think athletes they can be considered entertainers, but that's where I get in trouble is you start calling them entertainers. But they're there to inspire people to do things, right? And so more butts and seats is a good thing. Knowledge for a game, a love of a game that's our national pastime, beautiful. And so he did it for a love of the game, right?
You know, what you said leads me to tell you the story of both the quote from A Thousand Clowns, and that is, you've got one has to goose the world now and again, to prove that you're a human being, not a clown or not a seat.
Yeah, no, I mean it is.
Yeah.
You have to push those boundaries, and it's
You
funny.
have to get to it. The one thing I will have to admire about 1, 2, 3, and Charlie Finley and Carl, he got to the edge of the boundaries sometime. We all get that way. And boy, it's a good feeling if you could just be there and look down and people are going, jump. Are you going to jump or what? And you have the option of jumping. Sometimes you jump and you fuck it all up.
Well, and let me paraphrase. I don't know if it's a direct quote, but it's a paraphrase of George Carlin. He said, as a comedian, you have a responsibility to go all the way up to that line and deliberately cross it.
Right.
Because you have to know, is that really the line? Is that really the boundary?
So was that, I mean, when that person in the book said inflicted, it was, to me, it was what in school we used to call stuck up, like a stuck up comment. But I never wanted to think that stuck up was anywhere around anymore. I mean, that didn't exist. And
now it's an ego thing, or yeah.
Well, people would talk. I remember hearing the word, "Oh, he's cocky," when he was young. Yeah. Oh, he's cocky. He would take a chance.
He's full of himself. He's full of himself.
Well, okay, so that's a little different. I think that's really an ego thing, right? But being cocky, being confident, sometimes is just saying, I got to go into this with.
How can you separate the two?
What, between being cocky and being selfish?
And being an ego thing.
Because I think I'm not a very confident person.
But you play one on TV.
But I play one on stage. You are correct. So how does that work for me? It's funny. I have a little playlist, and I'll make sure I do my homework. So as a comedian, I make sure I have my bullet points on my piece of paper that I've rehearsed in my head and I've recited in my head and that I can't forget no matter what. But I also need that little bit, whatever your get you really pumped up song. I don't know if it's the theme from Rocky. I don't know if it's this or that, but it's something that gets you inspired. And when you go on stage, that you're confident that you're going to do the best that you can do. I like that. I like that feeling. And that's being cocky. I mean, when I say when somebody goes, how are you going to do tonight? I'm going to kill him. I'm going to knock him dead. You don't want to go out there and go, yeah, I don't know. I'm not feeling really great. I'm just going to this and that. And you're going to get killed.
But that depends.
You're going to get killed. You better fake yourself out. You better psych yourself out.
That depends on your style. Some comedians, that they work very low key.
Right.
And they're very dry.
Right, but they still got to tell themselves, I'm gonna do this tonight. I know my material. I know it's good.
But they tell themselves that on an intellectual matter.
Oh, I lie to myself.
Yeah.
I lie to myself. I lie to myself. It's because if it was really solely on the basis of my material, I probably wouldn't go up.
Hey, listen,
we're all vulnerable, right?
If we didn't all lie to ourselves, we'd be living on the street where it was nice and cool under some gutter that was good. You gotta lie
to the Soft White Underbelly podcast.
Right, there is that, and it's coming out in June.
Go under a log somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Have you heard of a writer from San Francisco Chronicle named Glenn Dickey?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, of all the writers, I think he is the one who hates all Finleys. everyone in the family. And I forced myself to read his book. Gosh, it came out in 2002. He was the worst person to write a book called The World Series Champions, because I know that he didn't know anything about us. Charlie talked to him on a few occasions to try to make peace, but he didn't tell him anything worthwhile. But he thinks he knows Charlie, but he didn't like us. And I read his book, and that was bad.
What could have Charlie done, looking back? And she's dead, of course, and looking back doesn't help. But what would have he, in retrospect, said that he could have done differently? I know how he was treated, and I know about perception and all of this, but what would have Charlie taken responsibility for?
I'm trying to think. Now, people resented that he didn't move to the Bay Area, and I used to say, well, we were there, and people still resent it. His wife wouldn't have done that. They had all those kids back there in school. He wouldn't blame his wife, but that was the situation.
Wow.
And I never understood why people took that so personally. And then he wasn't the type to join country clubs. He was past that, or organizations. He didn't like to schmooze at events, high-end events. He was invited to a lot of those. People didn't understand mules. We had a lot of cracks about our mule mascot. I'm just trying to figure out. I would say probably come into the office on occasion, because I never saw him working in the office. But Dad liked the distance. The distance was the reason they could work together.
Maybe you just needed a good press agent. Somebody to tell him, put him up in front of, kissing babies and shaking hands.
Well, Dad had his master's in journalism. That was Dad. That's why he wanted Dad, but he wouldn't listen to Dad. Dad would tell him when he went in alone, say no comment or just smile, and someone would push his button.
Right.
So Dad was mad a lot.
So he was an emotional individual.
He was one of a kind. You have to remember that what he invented, basically, to get the capital to even think about buying a team, came as a result of his being, I think he had tuberculosis as a very young person. He was confined to hospital, and he got to meet a lot of the doctors that were taking care of him, and he put two and two together. What these doctors all had in common is that if they became disabled, they were done for. I mean, they were making more money than they were, less money than they were spending, and so they were all living on what they're gonna make, let alone what they're making now. If that ended, they got big problems.
That's right. And he was forced to stay still in one place and not
think
move
about
around.
it and meet these people and really get from them, the doctors, what they need. Because there's an old expression, you sell the steak, not the sizzle.
Yes. Yes. Wow, that's very good.
Well, thank you very much.
He has his moment. He really does, and that was one of them.
Do you know how few people have ever said that about anything I've said? Ralph, we'll keep that. We'll make a clip. Ralph, that was really good.
Yeah, that's going to be the reel for this week.
Okay, yeah, that
we'll make it the reel.
That could be the reel.
But quite honestly, you're the steak and the sizzle to me, my man.
And so
Aw.
Charlie could sell the sizzle. And the sizzle in this case meant that he would get insurance companies to back him, and he could sell a product to doctors. That just because you're a doctor doesn't make you a business person. And Charlie had been in the insurance business, and Charlie was very bright. Am I right, Nancy?
Yes, right
Oh,
indeed.
bright.
Except, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
of course he had limitations, what the world brought on him, and his problems with, not problems, but the way he got along with people. But he was very bright.
Yes.
And
Now
what he
to
got
be
across to the entire medical community at large, he had premiums coming in that he got a commission on from doctors that are used to overpaying whatever they bought. So money wasn't going to be an issue. They would join an association, the MBA, or I don't think it was the MBA, but it was.
It wasn't the
NBA.
NBA. but
I
MLB.
joined. I
the
joined.
NBA.
All right. It wasn't any of those two things. Or it was a BA.
It wasn't the ATF. It wasn't the FBI. It wasn't even the WTF.
There was
IRS.
I'm just telling you.
there was an A involved, right?
There was an A in
And it wasn't your fucking A.
Yeah, and I
Right.
can't even. I don't even have
Nancy,
an A to hang my jeans off of. So okay.
We're just bantering. Excuse me, Nancy. We can edit this out and
We'll
all.
take care of this.
But we
in post.
won't. We will.
We'll take care of this in post.
She'll never watch. She'll
Wow,
never.
you're so down to earth. I love it.
Well, I'm close to being
Under
closer
Earth?
to under there. I'm getting there.
I felt it coming.
I
felt that joke coming.
You know it was coming, Paulie, because in humor, there's got to be a lot of truth in humor.
There is. There's a lot of vulnerability and truth, and that's why I always keep a couple, silver dollars over here so you can place them on my eyes when I.
Well, I won the bet, Nancy. I don't know if you realize this was the year that I lived longer than my life expectancy. And you have no idea how settling that is to somebody. Well, whatever it is, you got the most years, certainly had the most fun, certainly got a lot accomplished, if you include my son, who is a tremendous human and whom I raised for the first 5 years. I was the house dad. I co-raised. So I'm proud of that. I wrote a book. I have a great podcast. I chose a terrific partner to have this podcast with. And I have wonderful guests that, like Nancy, who you've come on my podcast before it was a visual thing.
I didn't know how. Yeah.
Right, but we talked on that many times about many different things. You're in the books that I wrote. If I'm not mistaken, we left out things that will be in the second. That's okay if there is no second book, but when there is, we'll put that in there because we gotta be us. That's the way it is. All three of us want to get the word out of what we believe in so many different ways. We share that together. That's why it's nice that, not to include me on this, but passionate and articulate, both of you are, and not that I'm not. It helps when you get three people doing a podcast at the same time. So I'm guessing I'm intuitive about these things, that we're getting to the point where we want to know what you have going so that you can plug yourself, as it were.
Yeah, please give us any shout outs or any plugs or anything you've got going on, and then
Would
we're
be
going
part
to
two.
one
Part
commercial
two.
break, and then we'll come back and finish up with Nancy and stuff. But
Right.
Oh,
right.
oh, my Amazon, by the way, has my book in a pre-order paperback.
oh,
I found that by not expecting it.
Now,
there you go.
You never know what you can find when you don't look for things in life and they come upon you. It makes it easier to accept, and there's a certain cosmic thing that's out there. Good things happen to those who deserve it. So let's do a plug. And because
let me ask you this before we go roll into that commercial, though. You told us you just finished Straight A's, aka Finley Ball 2, which we're waiting for the title. But when does the ink dry on that? When does it hit the press? When do we see it?
I would love to know. I thought right before the 2025 season would be great, but that's when the paperback's coming out. I'm waiting to hear back from that publisher. After I gave the whole manuscript to him, I know there's a lot to read, but I'm on pins and needles about it.
Oh, there you go. So do you know if that's the final? Do you know if is that the final?
Well, they might want to edit some things, but that's it for me. I go all the way up to when Charlie passed away.
Okay.
And what Charlie did in the 80s with his football, because no one mentions that in any other book. And then what Dad did. So, yeah, that's it.
All right. There we go. So look for it wherever fine books are found, which is going to be on Amazon and stuff like that. It's Finley Ball 2. Straight
and I write
A's.
about Billy Ball because I was there.
Oh, there you go.
That was a very interesting time, and the time that if you'll excuse the pun, that Mike Heath and I shared.
I know.
Who was Billy's coach at the time, and has a wonderful way about him, as Nancy knows. He's just a mellow guy, the kind of guy that I would have enjoyed having as a next door neighbor wherever I lived. And he's
sweet.
He's
wonderful.
Tolerant as hell, and capable and well accomplished.
Well, one thing I wanted to say too was how our late 70s was not a bad team like the press described. We were rebuilding, and we were creating a good team, and Mike was part of that. And so,
and you had Mitchell Page, who I really liked.
Ricky Henderson.
Ricky turned out to have one hell of a career.
Oh yeah, I went through our rosters carefully with, each person, and I wanted to explain how this was becoming a good team. These were the seeds starting in 76, 77.
Let me tell you something about those A's teams too, that the stars notwithstanding, later in life, there was a high preponderance of players from that exact era who went into coaching. As Nancy knows, I was the minor league scout, if you were, for Topps baseball, and I got to go through the minors and meet all these coaches that had been players when I was a kid and what have you. And Teddy Kubiak, Piccolo was a coach in the minors for years. Pete Rickard, I don't know if he was an A, but he certainly was an A's minor league manager.
Did you know Bobby Hoffman?
I can tell you, Bobby, I was hoping to be somewhere reminded of Bobby Hoffman. an original New York Giant. Originally,
We spent holidays with him and his wife in the late 70s.
right now, Bobby Hoffman was known as one of the Soda Twins. There was Ray Cott as a New York Giant, and Bobby Hoffman as a New York Giant. They both played on the same team, and the press dubbed them the Soda Twins. They both sat on the bench, and they were both good ball players. But Bobby Hoffman grew up on what, maybe Nancy knows what this is called. I know Paul does, or doesn't he?
We'll find out soon. As soon as you.
We'll find. Do you know what?
How do you keep an asshole suspense? Hold on a second.
Okay, I'll wait a second. I'll wait a second.
You're killing me.
How about the Hill in St. Louis? Who was famous for being from the Hill?
Being from the Hill in St. Louis?
Yeah.
Oh, should I know who's famous from
Nancy?
St. Louis has a hill?
Well, Yogi Berra grew up on the Hill.
Okay.
And his playmate as a kid, and they went through school, was Joe, lived on the same block, Joe Garagiola. Two catchers, one a superstar. Joe Garagiola, to catch in the big leagues, you have to be something. Who grew up on the same block. Imagine that. Bobby Hoffman was another kid who grew up on the Hill. He was a Giant. Joe Garagiola later in his career became a New York Giant. And a guy named Jack McGuire was a New York Giant as well. All three of those guys played with Yogi Berra and Van Ladders as kids. So there you've heard it from the master.
I didn't know that. I wish Bobby had told me about that.
Is he no longer with us?
I know he's not. He and his wife would have Thanksgiving and Christmas with us at the house of that season ticket holder up through the mid 80s.
No, is he no longer with us?
No. I tried to find him. I've been told he's not.
Oh, well, rest in peace.
No.
And very few Giants of that era of when I was a kid, kind of thing, are left, and you see it in folks passing, mortality. Bida, who was an absolute delight as a human being. He and I shared the same dentist one time, and we'd sit and wait and calm each other down in the waiting room, as it were.
Oh yeah, I know that.
I know that feeling. But he was a delight, and he's gone, and so many others. We mentioned Fish died soon after you. The meeting.
6 weeks after that, get together.
Yeah. Wow. And
around his wife, I don't say Catfish. I say Jimmy, because and with Odom, I say he's Johnny to me.
Right.
So there is something about those nicknames. You just don't. We feel like you don't say them in social events.
I'll think about that next time I refer to either of those guys, because what would you
so yeah, even like the Vita Blue thing, would you have actually, let's say the nickname True Blue actually stuck, you'd still be calling him Vita?
Oh yeah.
Right, you wouldn't have said, "Hey True, what up?"
Right. That was for marketing only.
That would have just shown that you didn't know him on a personal level.
You could call me True Blue if the money is right. And
I don't think Catfish
True Blue Jew. True Blue Jew.
Oh, you're trying to get me canceled, right?
Well, we're all canceled.
Just letting you know, we're in the cancel culture, dude.
Oh, that's true.
They're going to cut me off right then and there.
So we'll eliminate the True Blue and we'll just say Jew boy.
Oh, jeez.
Jew Boy does
That's right.
podcast. Okay. And Nancy, you met a Jew once when you were in Kansas City. Do you remember? I'm kidding.
I do not understand Jew and white. I mean, they all look. I have them in my family, and I never knew. I'll hear people say, "Oh, he's a Jew." I didn't know that.
Well,
I mean, just I didn't.
up till
My dad
last Thursday, a lot of Catholics thought.
Well, Charlie's wife was half Jewish.
Well, you know, I am too. I'm half Jewish and half atheist, and I don't believe in God, but I can still get your shit wholesale.
Yeah, I can't tell people apart. Now, can you tell?
Okay.
You like that?
I like that a little, yeah.
Can you tell I'm a Gentile? I guess I'm a Gentile. I don't know.
No, I couldn't tell. Not from a mile away.
See? I mean,
you are a true human being, which means that it doesn't matter to you. Like, I'm a Jew, but I use it in a humorous way, and
it's a religion, isn't it?
It's a religion, but it's a culture. They say that the expression "wandering Jew." It's a reason we've gone history-wise. Jews have had to escape many different things to come where we're at. So we're a different breed, and I'm proud to be a Jew.
And you should feel safe now.
I should feel safe? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll go on record. I'll go on record here. I've never seen you with one of those space lasers.
What?
the Jewish space laser thing that Marjorie Taylor.
I don't even.
Just letting you know.
I heard
right over my head.
Okay. Yeah, well, she's.
It's a political thing because we're on the boat today.
Oh yes, it's scary today, and we could have this and take our minds off what could happen. So if you haven't voted,
we all have.
Vote for whatever is humane, and that should take care of it. Go to the dictionary and find out what humane is, and see which of the candidates are humane. And I think you'll find that it's easy to make a decision if you've been waiting to the last minute and there's still time. I should have thought about this months ago. Just define humane. And would one want their president to be humane? Well, if nothing else, because you could argue the politics and what have you, you can't argue the heart. And I'm just hoping for the best today. For all of us who are somewhat humane, you expect the president to be at a higher standard of humanity because he or she represents us all. And I've been disappointed in politicians before. Sure I will today, but I'd like to think I'm dancing around tonight when that woman wins by such a high preponderance that Trump would look like, and he's got other fish to fry at this point. How much could he put in to fighting the results? If it's
close,
that's it. That's what I say.
It better be a large margin.
It better be.
The polls are saying yikes. They're saying neck and neck the whole way. So I'm not even going to go home. When I go home tonight, I'm not even going to turn on CNN or wherever you look at the big board. I'm just going to go to bed. I'm just going to go to bed and wake up in the morning and know it's a better world we live in.
That's the best thing to do.
And when here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do other things in the meantime, but every 15 minutes, you got to know what's going on.
you're gonna take that Trump voodoo
No,
doll off the shelf and stick a couple pins in them and put them back up on the shelf. And then,
well, I don't want to say on election day who I would put on, and I know, and let's get to this. Kamala,
Kamala, yeah.
I'm using Trump's.
Oh, you're using all his bad
right
pronunciations of her name.
Call her what you want. She's not perfect. She's our savior, but she is she was a prosecutor and prosecuted for weed for and smoked it for with a lot of people knew about it, and it was common knowledge. She smoked it herself, and while she was doing it, was putting a lot of people in the weed business in federal prison.
She was?
Yeah, she was a prosecutor, and she was she chose to prosecute and chose to live her life in a hypocritical way. And it's not a right or wrong for a lot of people. Certainly not as right or wrong as what the Trumps do and have done on a daily basis with the COVID and all that. But it was what she was. Who's perfect? She's our savior. We cannot afford to get rid of democracy.
Well, here's my thought. If she gets in, it's business as usual in the political machine in America, which is fine. We know that it has its issues and will go back and forth. But if he gets elected, it's going to be ugly, nasty, and I can see why people want to move and want to leave and stuff like this.
The first thing,
and the thing about Kamala and cannabis, because we're getting close, but I know that she was interviewed on something the other day, and she does support cannabis, and she was even surprised they actually have a Kamala Kush out there.
Oh,
so
really?
they have their own little her own little brand, but it's not. She didn't endorse it, but we'll endorse her for it.
But she did it with a smile on her face, where past politicians would have, and that leads me to believe that we had Trish Herrera Spencer on, and she was a pioneer. There was no dispensaries in Alameda, and we may kind of glossed over it. She was the one that got it through and made the powers that be see the money involved.
Well, the money and even the compassion, because people need.
No,
it was money.
It was money and availability, and put it by schools and not. It was money. Should we be sued? And a belief system. They were up against some politicians that were highly against it.
Right, but I think she also was a proponent that it had a medical use, because she said that in our interview, that she knows that people that should have access to certain things.
Of course, but it didn't stop the people from not having it for a long. Had a medical use before she came along. She fought those people,
right,
and called attention to it. And whatever your medical use, it doesn't have to be physical, it could be mental. And having that as your sedative, as it were.
Oh yeah, it helps people with PTSD and everything else.
And not having to feel guilty, not that I ever did, by buying on the black market.
But you're a person that has no problem using cannabis, legal or not. There's people out there that,
of course,
that are like, if it wasn't legal, and even if it is legal, I still grew up in the day and age where that was taboo, and I'm not going to touch the devil's lettuce.
Then
Or
I'm
whatever.
not trying to change
And so-
anybody. I say
No, I
then
know,
more for
I know.
me. That'd be great.
Yeah, I know.
It drive the prices down, Nancy.
Yes, he's all about supply and demand.
I am. It's that way. It's just that way. You have supply and demand.
So let's go back to Nancy and let's get a couple more things from her, and then we got to do the things that pay the bills.
No, but I just want to thank Trish again. She's been very supportive of me over the years,
Right.
In doing the podcast. One of my first interviews that made me think, well, it isn't all sports. It's I could talk to people about just curiosity, and I ask you questions. I'm just curious, and I was and am, and so I took it. It's been great. It's election day. If you have a chance, of course you vote for Kamala, but vote for her too locally in Alameda.
Vote for Trish, yeah.
And it's certainly not too late. Even if you voted, tell 2 or 3 people that I told you that Trish has a heart. And you do not see that in many politicians.
Right.
And I can say that from dealing with her as a friend, and who really helped a friend of mine, George A. And George Archibald.
Okay.
He'd be glad to tell you. And it was about getting his kid in school or what have you. 10 years later, she remembers that he was a Marine veteran. Her head's in the game. It's not just numbers or this or that or votes.
Again, it's for people that actually have a love of the people or a love of the game, and their heart's in the right place.
Exactly. And I'm so glad to know her as a friend. I've lived in Alameda now for 32 years, and I'm privileged. Let's go to Nancy. We got to say goodbye.
But we want to get more. Nancy, anything else you want to say? Thank you for hanging out with us. We really love hanging out with you.
I want to say a lot. I'll come back.
Please do, because we never get enough time with you.
I have a lot to say.
Oh.
And we have to mention the hat. So we always want to leave them wanting more. So we're gonna leave them a little teaser with this. Tell us a little bit about whose hat that was and that you just got it back.
Charlie commissioned this hat with 2 other designs after his Time magazine photo up, because when he was a single divorced man, he started wanting to wear this kind of hat, and it just sort of became his logo. And people want me to wear it now. When I would go to the Coliseum, people would expect to see my hat, which meant people could kick me out in the crowd, but that's okay. I just loved everyone there. So
and then it was out of your hands for a while. How long was it gone?
It was about 2 years.
Okay.
And it was just put up on a shelf for a display. And I don't really even think it was remembered, but I wanted it back. I asked different people, but finally I asked the right person. And when I was in Oakland in June, I got it back.
There we go. And we'll get to hear the whole saga. But thank you again, Nancy H. Finley, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us, Nancy. We really appreciate you.
Thank you
and we look forward to Finley Ball 2 coming out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Be well.
Okay.
Say hello to Morgan for me.
Absolutely. Now we're back here live in studio, and what we're gonna do is we have 2 ads to run. We should have run one in the middle of the segment with Nancy, but that's okay. First one is about our buddies over at the auto repair shop, so we'll go with it right now. I think. I gotta do this. Can you believe this? Here we go. right, D1 Mobile Auto Service Repair at 510-978-7064. Check them out on the web at D1 Mobile Auto Service Repair. There's the hours. There's the phone number. Check out Dennis and his crew and everything they do. Again, it's D-mobileautoservice.com. And tell them Zig sent you.
As Groucho used to say, tell him Groucho sent you. Well, that was my Groucho.
There you go. Here we go.
Do tell him, tell Dennis, Mr. Ralph said hi.
Remember to support these small businesses when you do. You support the great folks.
Park Social, located at 1222 Park Street, Alameda. Open 9 to 9 p.m. 7 days a week, with specials every day of the week. Look us up on the web at parksocialalameda.com. Again, that address is 1222 Park Street in Alameda. Phone number is 510-747-9707.
And again, make sure to tell them Zig sent you. That's Jada over at Park Social and her crew over there. And I know you got a lot to say about Jada and her crew.
Oh, tremendous. They're building a cannabis community in Alameda, where I make my home, as it were, and I'm loving it. I'm included. These ads are seen by all the bartenders. Jana's just deals with the community in a way that's terrific. Making sure the people are communicated with. They're not just going in like some of the places, and I'm not saying any dispensary would have been nice in Alameda. We have 4, thank you, Trish. At this point, I chose the one that had ambiance, prices, and communication. And
knowledgeable bartenders, they know what they're doing. So
exactly. And so if you go there, ask for her. If she's not there, come back, or anybody can take care of you in their name, or in Jada's name. But the point is that just drop by, tell them I sent you, and make me feel good. Make them feel good too. And that's what I liked about the sounds.
All right, guys, it's that time. For myself, Zig, we're out here. You guys got to get out of here. If you haven't voted, go out and vote. Do your civic duty there and do your thing. Let's all wake up in a better America tomorrow.
Oh, God be willing, and I'm not just saying. I am definitely concerned. I think if we win by a substantial enough amount, we won't have Trump will have nothing to say.
Hey, I'm going to take one of these X tabs to calm down and go to bed tonight, and then I'll wake up in a better America. But I'm not going to take one of these until I see Calm Down with James E. Dex here on Ed Studios. See how I did that?
Whoa, that's what's called a segue.
There we go.
All right.
For myself, the Zig Man, we're out of here. Till next week, guys.
Thank you for listening.
And keep standing up, guys. I'm out.